I don't want an old woman who can't even have a child." My husband spat out those words as he thrust the divorce papers at me. While rubbing her slightly swollen belly, my sister had a triumphant smile on her face. It was frustrating. It felt empty. I hated the world where my sister, who lived by stealing other men, seemed more rewarded than me, who lived honestly. Still, I couldn't bring myself to live like my sister and chose to live an honest and solid life. Then, one day, a miraculous turning point came into my life. I am Amy. I am 32 years old and work as an office worker at a small company. My hobbies are reading and saving money. And I prefer a very simple style focused on cleanliness for clothes and makeup. I'm the type who wants to use good things for a long time. Tom, who proposed to me saying, "You're solid and wonderful," liked that about me. Tom was a sales representative for a client of the company I work for. And as we saw each other, we became close friends when we discovered we were the same age. Tom is tall and not bad looking. But since he graduated from an all-boys school and worked in a workplace with few women, he wasn't used to women, and I seemed to be his first girlfriend. I liked his earnest personality, who, although clumsy, cherished me. Our marriage was smooth at the beginning. However, as I didn't get pregnant even after a year, dark clouds began to loom. I bravely went to the OB/GYN, and there was no particular issue with my body. I suggested Tom also visit the hospital, but he evaded with a vague excuse, "But I'm a man." He must have his pride as a man. But if there was a problem with him that could be treated, I wanted to work on it together. If it wasn't possible, it would be fine for us to just live together. But if there was a chance, I wanted to have a child with Tom. No matter how many times I appealed, Tom would respond vaguely. And seemed unwilling to see a doctor. Then, one day, my sister Kathy, who got married 5 years ago and is 3 years younger than me, returned to our parents' home. Kathy got pregnant by a 20-year-old university student when she was 24, rebelled against our parents who were against the marriage, and moved into her partner's home. She hadn't shown her face at all for 5 years. But it seems she divorced and left the child with the man's family. My in-laws tormented me, so I came back. I wanted to raise my son, but he was taken away by my husband's parents. She cried to Mom, but we don't know the truth. Because Kathy has always been good at fake crying and eliciting sympathy. Unlike me, who is plain, Kathy has a glamorous appearance and always wears trendy clothes. She has always lived a life with men by her side. When she gets tired of the guy she's dating, she makes him look bad and invites the sympathy of the next guy she's after. Then she switches to a new guy. So, I think there must have been something with her relationships with men this time. And usually, our mom would see through Kathy's lies. But perhaps because it's her daughter who returned after a long time. Or because she was weakened by our dad's death last year, she was swayed this time. Well, it's family, so it can't be helped. That's how I turned a blind eye. However, I would come to know that this decision was the worst after it was too late to undo. During the Easter holiday, as usual, I brought Tom to visit, and of course, Kathy was there. Kathy, who did not attend our wedding, was naturally meeting my husband for the first time. Tom, who is not used to women, takes a step back as the young woman relaxes in a camisole and shorts. But when Kathy saw Tom's face, her eyes lit up. "Wow, sis, your husband is so handsome." "What?" Both of us were stunned. Indeed, thinking back, Tom has the same type of delicate features as Kathy's previous boyfriends. "Nice to meet you, I'm Kathy, Amy's sister. Looking forward to getting along with you, bro."
Yeah,
Called a bro, in a sweet voice by Kathy, Tom turned red and looked away. During the meal, Kathy, for some reason, sat next to Tom, smiling and talking to him, and kept touching his arm and knee. Seeing my distress, Mom reprimanded Kathy, but she brushed it off with, "But I'm just happy to have a brother now." Tom turned to me with a face red for help. Reluctantly, we began to prepare to leave early. As we did, Kathy whispered in my ear, "Sis, you've caught yourself a good man." It sent shivers down my spine. In the car on the way back, Tom, looking drained, said, "Your sister is something else." So, I apologized, "I'm really sorry." At that moment, I realized Kathy had taken a liking to Tom. But I thought nothing would come of it because of Tom's lack of interest. However, for Kathy, who was experienced with men, seducing Tom, who wasn't used to women, was probably easy. By the next spring, Tom, with his arm around Kathy's shoulder, declared, "I love Kathy, so I want us to break up." Naturally, I was shocked and felt dizzy. That's unforgivable. Even if you don't forgive me, the fact that I no longer love you doesn't change. Why? Sorry, sis. But I knew the moment I met him that Tom was my destiny. Kathy. Forced to witness their infatuated gazes, I became infuriated. "Kathy, you. Hey, don't lay a hand on Kathy. She's carrying my child." "What? Tom's child? After 2 years of trying between us? Really? Kathy is really carrying Tom's child?" I couldn't help but stare at Kathy's belly, and she smirked triumphantly. "Yes. You might have thought Tom was infertile, but I easily got pregnant with his child." "No, that can't be true." Tom looked down on me as if I were trash. "It seems you were the only defective one." Blaming Tom when you're the defective one is the worst. Poor Tom. Kathy leaned on Tom, and he gently stroked her hair. "Don't talk like that. I just wanted a child with you. That's why I wanted you to go to the hospital." That was pressure. Not just about the child. "You always talk about saving and expenses for old age, forcing a poor lifestyle on me." I was sick of not being able to spend money freely like when I was single. "You and your life are plain, lackluster, and boring." Tom's harsh words cut through me. "You were the one who said you liked my solid nature. Compared to that, Kathy has always been kind to me. That's why she's carrying my child." "That's not. I didn't mean to blame you. Even if you couldn't have children, I would have accepted you. I just wanted you to get tested at the hospital, just once." Was I wrong? So, the child ended up in my sister's belly? I felt faint, and everything went dark before my eyes. The reality that my own sister stole my husband and I have a child in her belly, which I was never able to have, is so heavy that I can't even muster the strength to blame them both. As if to mock me further, Tom placed the filled-out divorce papers on the table. "If you've understood your mistake and your position, then hurry up and sign. Don't worry, I'll pay the compensation properly. After all, I'm dumping a pitiful older woman who can't even bear children." Tom is so kind. Their voices faded into the distance. Crushed by despair, I was left alone as the two of them quickly disappeared after leaving the divorce papers behind. Over the next few days, I managed to regain my sanity and, in the end, agreed to the divorce as they had suggested. Though I had the option to refuse since I was the victim, I couldn't bring myself to make an innocent child illegitimate. Instead, I secured a fair amount of compensation through a lawyer. Tom paid it all at once without any hesitation. It saddened me to think he was willing to pay to be rid of me. Hearing about my divorce and my sister's affair, my mom seemed even more shocked than I was. She declared, "Never set foot in this house again." To Kathy and Tom, and threw Kathy's belongings out of our home. then embracing me as she apologized with tears, saying, "I'm sorry, it's because I welcomed her in." My mother and I cried together. It was frustrating. It felt empty. I despised the world where my sister, living by stealing another's man, seemed more rewarded than I, who lived earnestly. Yet, I couldn't bring myself to live like my sister, and continued to lead a modest and solid life even after the divorce. That's when a turning point came into my life. One holiday, while reading a book in my favorite book cafe, someone approached me, asking, "Could you be Amy?" When I looked up, I recognized the face. David? I knew it. It's been a long time. David, a classmate and childhood friend, smiled happily. We hadn't seen each other since we went to different schools, and had since drifted apart. Our conversation flowed as if we hadn't been apart, and I learned that he too had divorced and returned to his hometown. His ex-wife had been irresponsible with money, leading to a divorce due to significant debt. When I shared my own experience of my ex-husband and sister's affair, he was indignant on my behalf, which pleased me. Finding out we both enjoyed books, we hit it off and began seeing each other frequently, eventually starting a relationship. Both of us living frugally, we were confident that we could make it work. I mentioned that I might not be able to have children, but he laughed it off, saying we'd live happily together regardless. I wanted to spend my life with him. 2 years after reuniting, we had a small wedding ceremony in Hawaii and registered our marriage. 3 years later, while relaxing at home with my mother, the doorbell rang. Kathy and my ex-husband barged in, appearing for the first time in 5 years. Upon seeing me, they sneered in a disgusting manner. "Ah, it's sis. As plain as ever. And you're even without makeup. The granny smell just adds to it." Hilarious. How can you live with yourself if you're infertile? Aren't you ashamed as a woman? Yeah. Too bothered to engage with their demeaning remarks, I responded dismissively. In my stead, my mother glared at them. "I told you two never to come back here." "Oh, Mom. Still holding on to that grudge? You'll never see your grandchildren if you keep that up." "That's fine. Pretending to be tough, huh? Once you see my adorable daughter, you won't be able to say that anymore." "Lillian, come here." Confident Kathy called to the entrance, and a girl around 5 years old ran over. She resembled Kathy, pretty but silent, just watching us. "Isn't she cute?" "Your first grandchild." "Yes, she's a lovely child." "You must be regretting now, right? Protecting my sister instead of me. But it's okay, I forgive you. Just kick out the divorced, infertile loser, and we'll live with you. You can take care of your granddaughter every day. Happy, right?" Kathy continued to demean me while selfishly rattling on about her conveniences. My mother, with an impassive face, watched her silently. As Kathy's words trailed off, my mom sighed. "I understand what you're trying to say, but there's no way I could live with you two. Come on, don't be so stubborn. If you keep sympathizing with my sister, you'll never get to dote on your grandchild, you know?" Kathy laughed merrily, while Tom smirked condescendingly at me. Just then, a sound like a cat's meow was heard. "Huh? Mom, did you start keeping a cat?" Looking confused, Kathy glanced around. Mother quietly raised her arm, pointing towards the room next to the living room. "Look over there." "Huh?" Instead of the dumbfounded Kathy, I opened the door to the room Mother was pointing at. Inside, one child was sleeping on a blanket, and 2 babies were fussing and crying. "Huh? Whose kids are these?" "They are my grandchildren." "Huh? Your grandchildren? What do you mean?" "What do I mean?" If they're not your kids, they obviously must be your sisters. What? Their screams echoed as the two younger children started fussing even more. Mother and I took turns calming them down. Seeing the disbelief in their eyes, I decided to explain my current situation. I got remarried 2 years ago. But weren't you infertile? Holding a baby, I countered his sleepy remark. Well, seeing these kids in front of you, you can tell I'm not infertile, right? We started trying for a baby right away, and before we knew it, I was pregnant. And the second time, it was twins, so it was quite a handful. Oh. He nodded awkwardly, clearly embarrassed for having discarded me as a defective. Mom, gently soothing one of the babies, sternly told them. So, as you can see, we're not short on grandchildren. In fact, we're so busy we could use an extra pair of hands. Your sister may have moved out after getting married. But she comes back with her children, so there's no advantage for us in living with you too. Ugh. Kathy choked on her words, but quickly recovered and insisted. That's so cruel, Mom. Are you discriminating against your grandchildren? You brought this on yourself. How much are you giving my sister's kids? You didn't give my child anything. You brought this on yourself. Tom's parents are trying to disown us too. Isn't that pitiful? Help us. You brought this on yourself. Ugh. Kathy began to sob, but Mom remained unmoved. It appeared that Kathy and Tom had been forsaken by Tom's family as well and were in financial trouble. I don't know what they did, but they betrayed me and my mom would never lend a hand. Just then, another visitor appeared at the front door. Hello there, visitors? My husband, David, who had gone to buy diapers at the drugstore, appeared unexpectedly. Seeing David, Kathy's face turned red as she shrieked. David. Oh, Kathy, huh? You know each other? Taken aback by Kathy's girlish reaction, Tom was momentarily taken aback. However, Kathy paid no attention to Tom, hastily fixing her hair and fidgeting as she asked David. Why is David at our house? Why? Because this is my wife and children's home. What? Yeah, I married your older sister, Amy. What? Kathy let out a voice of despair. And it was no wonder. For Kathy, David was not only a childhood friend but also her first love, whom she had adored since they were kids. Even Kathy, who was skilled at manipulating men, reverted to a shy, adorable girl in front of David. Whenever David had a girlfriend, Kathy would lash out at me or recklessly pursue men in her distress. And now, her first love, whom she deemed inferior to herself, had married her plain older sister and even had children with her. It was enough to drive her insane. But, you were married, right? Did my sister seduce you? Of course not. She is not like you, after all. Kathy felt the blood drain from her face at David's cold gaze. I heard you went as far as having a child to steal Amy's husband. I'm disappointed in you. That's not true. David continued, I've heard rumors about you playing around with various men since we were kids. But I never believed them. You were like a little sister to me. But it turns out to be true, I'm disappointed. It's not like that, not like that. Please leave. This house is also precious to me. If you do anything to my wife or children, I'll never forgive you. Faced with her first love's hatred, Kathy began to tremble violently. This is wrong, all wrong. Lies, all lies. Kathy? Lies, 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 lies. Tom, watching Kathy mutter incoherently, turned pale. Now you see, I'm not infertile. And Kathy has always been surrounded by rumors about men. You chose her, so take responsibility and take her with you.
Ah.
Tom, dazed, dragged away the mumbling Kathy and left. I drove their child, Lucy, off to Tom's parents, who are decent people. They criticized Tom and Kathy for their actions, but supported them for the child's sake. If they're about to disown Kathy and Tom, it must mean they've acted terribly. Seeing her grandparents, Lucy ran to them with a bright smile. Relieved, I returned home to my husband and children. Later, Kathy secluded herself, then lashed out at Tom, left without money. Disowned by both families, and faced unjust treatment from his wife. Despite being labeled infertile, his ex-wife, who now has 3 children, succumbed to distrust and secretly conducted a DNA test on Lucy, which confirmed she was indeed his child. Perhaps it was just incompatibility that prevented us from having children. However, when Kathy found out about the DNA test, she exploded, further damaging their marriage until Tom, taking Lucy, fled and divorced. Tom had to grovel before his parents, but it seems they allowed him to return for Lucy's sake. I hope Lucy grows up happy under the care of her grandparents, who cherish her deeply. Meanwhile, Kathy, a stay-at-home wife with no savings, desperately searched for her next host. She met a man on an app who lured her with a lucrative offer, and she ended up being a part of the scam. When the man was charged with fraud, Kathy, who had assisted him, was arrested as well. A prison filled with women and devoid of men must feel like hell to Kathy. The thought of her possibly facing a prison sentence fills me with pity, despite everything. Half a year later, I sneak out to the living room on a weekend night, where my husband has prepared cocoa with marshmallows. We sit on our carefully chosen sofa, enjoying a quiet moment with a small toast. Good job today. The rich sweetness fills my mouth, while a gentle warmth spreads through my palms. As I savor this comfort, my husband has already opened a new book from his favorite author, diving into a world of fantasy. I, too, grab a book I've been eager to read, excitedly turning to the first page. My sister and ex-husband might laugh and call it plain if they saw us. But what others say doesn't matter to me. As our precious children sleep soundly after a satisfying day, spending time reading with my husband, my greatest supporter, creates a serene space. This is, for me, the ultimate moment of bliss. Hey. You've been late lately, what's been going on? I've been stopping by my parents' house. It seems like my dad isn't feeling well. Then, my husband scoffed and said something unbelievable. Are you really meeting some guy? Yes, I am meeting someone, just like you said. What? Well, my dad is a man, isn't he? Are you mocking me? I thought I might have gone too far, but considering everything up to now, this was nothing. I thought, actually, you're the one who's been seeing other women. I decided not to voice it out loud, but my husband seemed unsatisfied with my response. Hey. Don't joke around. As I was about to go to the bedroom to change clothes, something flew towards me when I turned around. Even though I realized what was happening, my body couldn't move an inch. Damn. It didn't hit? What he had thrown was an ashtray made of glass. Looking at the door, I noticed a dent in it. The thought of it hitting my face sent shivers down my spine. You better clean that up. From that day, I felt in danger and started sleeping on the sofa. A week after the incident, something hit my foot as I entered the house. It was a pair of high heels that weren't mine. If I had to describe my feelings at that moment, it would be nothingness. I slowly walked inside, and then, it's fine, she won't find out. Really? Definitely. Young women are the best, not like that old hag. I could hear voices from the bedroom. I quietly approached the door to listen. Hey, isn't it a bit too intense today? Not at all. I couldn't show this side of me to your wife. They were in the midst of an affair. I took out my smartphone and started recording their conversation. The old me would have lost myself in anger. But now, I was fully aware of my position. My husband didn't know that I was the president of a company with a total asset of $25 million. You'll break up with her, right? There's no reason to stay with her anymore. She should be fine, after all, she's been with a man like me. Won't your wife cry? Even if she cries, she'll still be ugly. I thought, as if I would cry. Even hearing such vile talk, I was calm enough to insert my own remarks. I finished recording their conversation. I wanted to capture video too, but I didn't want to enter the room. This was both the best and worst plan. Hello? Yes, please come over right now. I'll leave the door unlocked. I called an acquaintance who ran a moving company and asked them to come to the house immediately. After that, I left the house with only the most essential belongings. Thinking about the future awaiting her husband and his mistress made me feel oddly excited. And I still had some finishing touches to make. My name is Jennifer, and I turn 42 this year. Until now, I've been a lonely woman with no romantic stories to tell. But there was a clear reason for that. It was revealed when I became a senior in college, as my father told me. I'm thinking of making Jennifer the president of our company. What? Why had this happened to me? After all, I had an older brother named Mike. I thought, shouldn't the president normally be him? I understand what you're trying to say. Do you think Mike is more suitable? You understand? How long do you think I've been raising you? Indeed. But why me? I haven't even worked yet. I've always thought Jennifer had a good eye for people. That's very important for a manager. So that's why, brother. I realized the unpleasant truth about myself. Did you realize? Mike can work, but he doesn't have a good eye for people. Then, my brother entered the living room. Sorry about that. I don't really have a good eye for people. Were you here? I've been listening to the conversation from the start. My brother has had various episodes since he was in high school. Being the son of a businessman, he was adored by those around him. During that time, he was deceived by a close friend and ended up lending money. After realizing the truth, he immediately cut off the relationship. There were countless other instances, such as being deceived by his fiancée who was about to marry him, and having her run off with his money. But what should I do? You're a senior in college, you have some time, right? I'll drill into you the basics needed to be a president before you graduate. What? Don't worry. I'll support you as much as I can. Even so, as someone who only had her thesis left, I was planning to enjoy my last year to the fullest. I wanted to travel and even have a boyfriend. That's how precious I thought this time was to me. How about it? Will you give it a try? We don't have a mother. She passed away from illness when I was in elementary school. After that, our father raised us without remarrying. So, I hesitated. Can I have a little time to think about it? Yes. Take your time to think it over. After that, I took about a week to decide. Spending any more time than that seemed meaningless. Then, we gathered as a family once again. So, have you decided what to do? Yes. Looking at my father and brother, they seemed a bit nervous. I'll try my best as a business owner. Is that so? Are you sure you won't regret it? I won't. I've already decided. Understood. But it's going to be tough from here on out. I nodded. Then the hard days began. First, I crammed my head with basic information about my father's company and its competitors. Moreover, my brother conducted regular tests to check what I had learned. Before I knew it, a year had passed. I joined the company as a secretary upon graduation and learned the work and mindset of a president alongside my father every day. Before I knew it, I was in my mid-30s and finally took over as president. It's going to be tough, but you'll be fine, Jennifer. What about you, Dad? What will you do now? I'll technically become the chairman, but I'm thinking of taking it easy for a while. He had been working non-stop until now. I wanted him to live freely in the future. My originally talented brother became the executive vice president and supported me. Having my brother nearby was reassuring. The company's performance improved year by year, and work was going smoothly. I thought, I guess I'll just keep working like this. I turned 42. From this age, I began to strongly consider marriage. However, there were no such encounters for me now. The only time I had a boyfriend was in high school. And that too ended after just 6 months. Feeling conflicted, I often went to a cafe where I liked to think alone. There, I made a somewhat fateful encounter. I thought, when it comes to times like this, it's best to read a favorite book. When I want to calm my mind, I read my favorite book. I've liked a certain author since my student days and favored his books. As usual, I sat at the counter and immersed myself in reading with a cup of coffee in hand. About an hour later, when I was about to leave. That book. Huh? The man sitting next to me took out a book that was one of my all-time favorites. Excuse me. I also love that book. Is that so? I've recently gotten hooked on this author. We talked a bit about the book. I wanted to talk more, but since I had another appointment, I left the cafe. This was my encounter with Keith, who would later become my husband. I thought, he's about my age, isn't he? I felt a surge of desire to talk more. Perhaps because I had never had such a conversation before. It felt like finding a truly valuable comrade. I made time to go to that cafe. Thank you for the other day. Hello. I'm embarrassed that I spoke so freely. Not at all. I found it very interesting. Is it okay if I sit next to you? Yes, please do. From then on, we met at the cafe almost every week. At that time, I didn't have feelings of wanting to date him. I was simply happy to talk about things I liked. As we met more and more, I got to know about Keith. I see. The reason is my ex-wife's infidelity. Embarrassing, but true. That's not embarrassing at all. Keith was 43 and divorced. Embarrassed about my unmarried status, I lied, saying I was also divorced, just like him. As a result, we found more things in common. It was about 3 months after we met. That day, we made love for the first time. I'll take responsibility for this. Huh? Responsibility? Shall we live together? You mean? And so, I decided to move in with him. Since I wasn't used to such things, I left it all to Keith. Having lived at my father's house all this time, I reported this to him. Has spring finally come for Jennifer too? Don't tease me. I'm actually happy about it. At this time, I honestly told him that I had falsely claimed to be divorced. It's a lie you made up. If you don't want it to come out, keep it hidden. Have that much resolve. And what do you mean? I trust that Jennifer has a good judgment of people. But there might be those who try to use your current situation. Keep it hidden until you can truly trust someone. You mean I should figure it out? That's what I did when I married your mother. It was the first time I heard this, but I decided to follow my father's advice. Thus began my cohabitation with Keith. But soon I would learn the importance of my father's words firsthand. The move was handled by an old friend, and our cohabitation life started. Just the thought of living and sharing meals with someone of the opposite sex other than family made me nervous. I thought, can I really handle the household chores properly? Having worked all the time until now, my anxieties were endless. However, seeing Keith's smile made it impossible to complain. By the way, what kind of work do you do, Jennifer? I do something like a secretary at a friend's company. A secretary? That's impressive. It just so happened there was an opening. Having decided to keep it hidden until the right time. Half measures were the worst possible approach. Thanks to Keith, the life that followed became very enjoyable. He even smiled at my inexperienced attempts at housework at first. His broad-mindedness helped me, but at the same time, it made me realize just how incompetent I was at anything other than my job. I thought, I can't believe I'm this useless. At first, Keith laughed it off, but after about a month, his smiles gradually became less frequent. Is something wrong? No, not really. But you seem tired. Then Keith's true character showed. Who do you think is to blame for this? I understood that he was probably referring to my lack of abilities in various things. Still, I had been trying my best. I understand that, but then you know what you should do. Honestly, I had no words to respond with. After that, the way Keith looked at me completely changed. The next day, when I went to the office, my brother noticed my somber mood. Are you okay? You've been silent, but isn't something going wrong? I don't think so. How long do you think I've been your brother? His words echoed those of our father. I'm just not used to it yet. I see. Well, if Jennifer has decided on this, then I'll just support her. But as for Dad, I understand that. This is my problem, and I'll handle it myself. If you're that determined, you'll be fine. Though I said this to my brother, I didn't see a clear solution. As Keith and I began to drift apart, our meals together noticeably decreased. He also started to ignore the meals I prepared. One day after work, I decided not to give up and prepared his favorite dishes. Waiting for him to come home. Welcome home. What's this act? He pointed at the dishes laid out on the table. I thought I'd make something you like. So, it's for me, huh? That's why together. I thought surely he would be pleased. However, Keith's response was to deny everything I had done. Did you think this would satisfy me? Huh? He picked up a plate of food and started dropping it to the floor, plate by plate, as if to show me. I could only stand there and watch as it happened. Every time the food was thrown on the floor, I felt as if something important inside me was also being lost. If you have time for this, there are better things you could be doing. Even so, you didn't have to go this far. This is me being quite generous. Normally, I would be throwing it in your face. That's terrible. Clean up this mess. I'm going out to eat. Saying this, Keith left. I stood there in a daze for a while. I thought, maybe a woman like me just isn't meant to live with someone else. I don't know how much time passed. My sense of time was distorted. Then, I heard the sound of the front door opening. By the time I snapped back to reality, it was too late. Jennifer, you. This is. Keith sighed heavily, sat on the sofa, and lit a cigarette. I'll keep an eye out here. So hurry up and clean it up. I had no right to refuse. I began cleaning up the food scattered on the floor. Meanwhile, Keith watched my every move as if he were supervising me. Can't you move any faster? It'll be morning at this rate. I'll do it right away. I could never show this side of myself to my father or brother. No one could imagine that the president of the company where I work would do such things. It was almost over, just when I was about to wipe the floor. Keith crouched beside me, cigarette in hand. "Jennifer, do you want to marry me?" "What, suddenly?" "Answer the question." What would happen if I said yes? If we got married, and this kind of life continued, what would become of me?" As I hesitated to answer. "Not answering means you really want to stay with me, huh?" Right. While saying this, he blew cigarette smoke in my face. I started coughing. "Stop that." "Huh? What was that?" "I can't hear you." "This is your punishment. So, if you do things properly from now on, I won't have to do this." "I really don't want to do this." He covered his eyes with his hand as if he were crying. From that moment, my mind went completely blank whenever I was with Keith. "You understand, right? To me, Jennifer, you're irreplaceable." Those words made me feel saved, but it also meant that I was even more trapped. From then on, every day was just about waiting for time to pass. Only when I was working could I forget about Keith. A week passed. By this time, I had stopped preparing meals. As usual, when I got home, Keith had already returned and was inexplicably in a good mood. "I'm home." "Oh, you're back." He pulled me by the arm into the living room. "What's this?" "Just sit down." Then, I saw various kinds of alcohol prepared on the table. "What's this?" "It's fine once in a while, right? Let's drink together." Swept along, we started drinking together. After a while, Keith seemed to be quite drunk. That's when I asked him a question. "Did something happen today?" "No, nothing in particular. I just wanted to drink with you." I felt like he was hiding something, but he didn't talk, so I decided to enjoy the drink with him. "Oh. You can really drink. Come on, keep drinking." I drank at a pace I had never experienced before. I don't know how much time passed, but at some point, I had fallen asleep with my face on the table. I was awakened by Keith's voice. "It's okay. She's sound asleep now." It seemed he was talking to someone on the phone. My head was still foggy. "Besides, today is a special day. Talk to you tomorrow." I couldn't tell what he was talking about. I tried to speak to Keith, but no voice came out. I was sucked back into a dream. From the next day, Keith started coming home late. This had happened before, but this time it was different. He also smelled faintly of floral perfume. "Sorry, but I'm going to bed. Clean this up for me." Saying that, he threw his jacket and bag at me. I managed to catch them and he went straight to the bedroom. As I sighed and went to put the jacket in the closet, something fell out of my pocket. When I checked, it was a receipt from a hotel. I thought, so that's what it was. The recent lateness was due to this. Of course, I felt angry, but more than that, I despised my own pathetic state. To think that until now, I hadn't noticed something like this. From then on, Keith no longer showed any restraint towards me. I decided to keep the receipt I found well stored. I thought it might come in handy later. "Sorry, but I'm going back to my hometown tomorrow." "Tomorrow?"
"Yeah."
"You stay home and take care of things." "Understood." It was just before Keith was about to return to his parents' home. Keith's phone started ringing. "Looks like you're getting a call." "I see." Keith grabbed his phone and rushed to the bedroom as if escaping. "Then, I'll be going too." It was when I arrived in front of the elevator to leave for work as usual. I realized I had forgotten my pass and returned home. Then I heard Keith's laughter. Peeking into the living room, it seemed he was talking about me. I know. I'm about to head out, just wait a bit longer. I wanted to see you too. Couldn't travel because she was around. I thought, travel? Could it be? I should have done this from the start. She's so dumb she didn't even bring it up. What? That I should have never married? I had heard enough. Unable to stand it any longer, I confronted Keith. What did you just say? Sorry, I have to call them back. What about marriage? Can you explain that? Didn't I ask if you wanted to get married? You didn't answer, so I went ahead and decided for us. You can't just decide that on your own. On my own? We can't keep going like this forever. You should actually be thanking me. What is the right thing to say in this situation? Besides, you were lying, right? Lying? About being divorced. That was a lie, wasn't it? It felt like my heart was being squeezed. I've always thought something was off. For someone who was supposedly married, everything about you was just too sloppy. Do you think you have the right to criticize me? That lie I told to hide my true self turned out to be a mistake. See? So don't even think about challenging me. I was now vulnerable in the worst possible way. If this got out, it could affect not just me but also my family and my job. I thought, maybe I should have stayed alone after all. Besides, aren't you supposed to be working? I looked at the clock and realized I had wasted a lot of time. I quickly left the house. Arriving at the station, I realized I had forgotten my pass despite going back for it. It really wasn't my day. I felt like I had forgotten something else, but I decided to focus on work. As if waiting for me, more misfortunes continued. One Saturday, I received a panicked call from my brother. Come to the hospital right now. The hospital? Dad collapsed at home. I immediately went to the hospital I was told about. My brother was waiting in front of the hospital room, visibly unsettled. Jennifer. What happened? The doctor says it seems to be a stroke. It's not urgent right now. A stroke. We entered the hospital room together. Dad? I've caused you trouble. He appeared surprisingly lively. How are you feeling? I'm quite well now. But they said it was a stroke. He's been overdoing it a bit. Probably nature's way of telling him to rest. But, well, perhaps I am partly to blame for putting him in this situation. Mike is right. Take this chance to rest. We'll manage the company. Leave it to me. All right. I'll take you up on that offer. My father could dissolve the clot within 4, so he was able to leave the hospital relatively soon. Although my brother would look after him at home, I decided to visit regularly. That was when it happened. Hey. You've been late lately, what have you been up to? I've been stopping by my parents' house. It seems like my dad isn't feeling well. Then Keith scoffed and said something unbelievable. Are you really meeting some guy? Yes, I am meeting someone, just like you said. What? Well, my dad is a man too, isn't he? Are you mocking me? I thought I might have gone too far. But considering everything up to now, this was mild. I thought, actually, it's you who's been seeing other women. I decided not to start trouble by saying it out loud. However, my husband seemed unsatisfied with my response. Hey. Don't joke around. It was when I was heading to the bedroom to change clothes. I was called back, and as I turned around, I could see something flying towards me. Even though I understood what was happening, my body couldn't move. Damn. It didn't hit? What he had thrown was an ashtray made of glass. Looking at the door, I noticed a dent in it. The thought of it hitting my face sent shivers down my spine. You better clean that up. From that day, I felt endangered and started sleeping on the sofa. It was a week after this incident. I had told Keith that I would be going back to my parents' house that day. When my plans changed and I returned home early, something hit my foot. It was a pair of high heels that weren't mine. If I were to describe my current emotions, it would be in nothingness. I slowly entered inside. Then, it's okay, she won't find out. Really? Young women are the best, not like that old hag. Voices could be heard from the bedroom. I quietly approached the door to listen in. Hey, isn't it a bit too intense today? Not at all. I couldn't show this side of me to your wife. They were in the midst of an affair. I took out my smartphone and started recording their conversation. The old me would have lost myself in anger. But now, I was fully aware of my position. My husband didn't know that I was the president of a company with a total asset of $25 million. You'll break up with her, right? Yeah. There's no reason to stay with her anymore. She should be fine, after all, she's been with a man like me. Won't your wife cry? Even if she cries, she'll still be ugly. I thought, as if I would cry. But why did you do it in such a roundabout way? The marriage thing? I've been thinking about it. You know, she wears really nice things. I guessed. Hearing Keith's words made my heart skip a beat. Moreover, his guess was not wrong. But I didn't think it would work out so smoothly. Even hearing such vile talk, I was calm enough to insert my own remarks. I finished recording their conversation. I wanted to capture video too, but I didn't want to enter the room. This was both the best and worst plan. I called a friend, ensuring Keith and his mistress wouldn't notice. Hello? It's been a while. Haven't talked since that last move. I need a favor urgently. The call was to a friend who had helped me move into this house before. So, a move, right? Yes, but it's a bit complicated. I briefly explained the situation. Sounds like a mess. Yeah. Got it. I'll gather some people and head over. Thanks, I'll leave the door unlocked. And thus, preparations for the move were set. I couldn't enter the bedroom where Keith was having fun. For now, I packed what I could take in a bag and left the house. My destination was my parents' home. Huh? Did you forget something? No. I told my brother everything that had happened. Why did you keep quiet about all this? Sorry. There's been too much going on. And he's still at the house now, right? Yeah. Thinking about the future awaiting Keith and his mistress somehow made me feel excited. Then, a video call came from my friend. Everything's ready here. Got it. Let's get started. Roger, that. Before leaving, I had asked my friend to live stream the moving process. What's about to start? Just watch. My friend, greeted by other employees, enters the house. They begin moving out whatever seems portable. I thought, I wonder if they will notice. It seems like they haven't noticed at all. They seem to be really into it. Maybe head to the bedroom now. Then, my friend boldly opens the door. On the smartphone screen, Keith and his mistress are clearly visible in their naked glory. What are you guys doing here? How did you get in? We're the movers. Your wife hired us. Moving? What is she thinking? What should we do now? Just get out. Through the phone screen, I addressed Keith. Shouldn't you be the ones leaving? Jennifer, is that you? A scumbag like you should get out. Take that woman with you. Do whatever you want. I thought about leaving it at that, but then had another good idea. If you dislike it so much, why don't you and that woman come here? I'd welcome you. What? I'm at my parents' house right now. I gave Keith the address of my parents' house. You've got guts. I'll be there right away. He quickly dressed and stormed out of the house. He really is something. So, what about the move? Proceed as planned, please. Understood. Soon after, Keith and his companion arrived. I see you really came. Come on in. Wait. Is this really your parents' house? Yes, it is. So, I was right after all. I led Keith into the living room where my father and brother were waiting. So you're the infamous Keith. I'm divorcing you. I blurted it out immediately. I don't care. That'll involve compensation. What? I wasn't aware of this. Keith begins to laugh. Don't worry. Compensation is easy for me. Actually, I could claim compensation since she deceived me. You think that's possible? Is this man stupid? What? My brother, now infuriated by Keith's demeanor, steps in. Hey. A lowlife like you doesn't deserve to speak here. Huh? What's with Jennifer anyway? I show Keith a magazine. Look at the page with the post-it. It was an article from an interview I had once given. It detailed how I was the president of a company with a total asset of $25 million. You were a president? He laughs even louder than before. Then compensation is nothing. What does that mean? When couples divorce, there's something called division of assets. That means I can take a good chunk of money from her. Seriously? That's amazing. But that was not going to happen. Or rather, it couldn't happen. Sorry, but that's not possible. Do you even remember how we became a couple? I submitted the marriage registration. And you did it without telling me, didn't you? Did you know about the crime you committed? It's called forgery of a private document. That makes you a criminal. What? It's pretty obvious if you think about it. If I file a claim, the marriage is void. That means your plan is meaningless. Keith stood there, looking like a puppet with its strings cut. The mistress beside him called out desperately, but he didn't respond. Just call the police already. Let's do that. My brother called the police, and after explaining the situation, they took Keith away voluntarily. The look on his face as he left was more entertaining than anything I'd ever seen before. Keith and his mistress are truly facing tough times now. It feels so liberating that all my previous worries now seem foolish. Later, Keith was prosecuted based on the audio evidence I had submitted. Since it was his first offense, he was given a suspended sentence. However, that doesn't change the fact that he committed a crime. I wonder how he feels now. I decided to contact Keith on my own. Jennifer? Yes. I was wondering how you're doing. Thanks to you, my life is a mess. Well, now you have a criminal record. By the way, are you still with your mistress? Well,
Yeah.
Jennifer, then, this might be good timing. Huh? Actually, I'm consulting with my acquaintance at your company about your affair. What for? You don't need to do that. You've already given me enough revenge, haven't you? I just want to make sure you both suffer a bit. Are you the devil? If I weren't, I couldn't manage being a president. Good luck. Since then, Keith's life has been hell. His company found out he lied about taking time off and, additionally, he was fired for his crime. His mistress has been working from morning till night just to support him. You've had it tough too. It's so embarrassing that it turned out like this. So, you also lack judgment in your personal life. Just like me. Guess it's in our blood. Wait, but Dad. I was just lucky. With that, my father laughed. Now, I'm living at home, struggling daily as a president. Oh, and the belongings I had my friend move? I only had the essentials brought to my home, and all of Keith's things were sent to a recycling shop. Another day in the life of a president begins. Today, for some reason, the sky seems wider than usual.
Here you go, divorce papers, you poor useless excuse of a wife. Saying that, Fred leaves the divorce papers on the table and exits. I, lying on the hospital bed, stare blankly at the divorce papers. I had suspected something for a while, but I never really thought he was actually cheating. And now, because he got her pregnant, is discarding me, who can't earn money while hospitalized? Mom! Startled by my beloved son's voice, I look up to see Ian and my father standing there. My father frowns as he sees what I'm holding. What are you going to do? That's already decided. Even though it's a bit forced, I get discharged early from the hospital and head to the bank where Fred works. My father, who drives me there, drops me off in front of the bank, telling me, "Do your best," and then drives away. As I enter the bank, Fred notices me and frowns. By chance, there are no other customers in front of him. I walk straight towards Fred. I'm canceling all the accounts of the employees. Excuse me? Let's see who dares to anger my father's daughter. While Fred turns pale, I smirk confidently. I am Rachel Miller. At 32, I'm a corporate executive and a mother of a 7-year-old son, Ian, and married to Fred. Fred and I met at a group dating event organized by a mutual friend during our college days. Initially, we weren't interested in each other and just exchanged contact information. Huh? Weren't you, Rachel at the group dating? Ah, Fred? The next year, I happened to use a bank where he works, and we reconnected. This led us to start communicating frequently, and eventually we began dating. After I became pregnant with Ian, we got married. Fred is known for his serious and meticulous work, which has always made him enviable among our friends. I too felt fortunate to be married to someone like him. Mom, why has this happened? Wait a moment, honey. Mom doesn't know much about it either. I'll check now. Okay. Ian, possibly taking after Fred, is diligent and curious. He constantly asks questions like, "What's this?" and "Why?" making every day a learning experience for me. Surprisingly, the person Ian admires isn't Fred, but my father. My mother passed away due to illness, and my father, despite being busy with work, raised me alone. Sorry, I really can't get along with your father. It's okay, but don't tell him that. He's actually quite sensitive about it. I wouldn't say that. Although my father is a kind man, he looks tough and somewhat scary. Fred finds my father's appearance intimidating. My father is aware of this and tries not to interfere too much. Thus, initially we lived a calm life. It was smooth sailing. However, that changed abruptly once we were married. Hey, where did you put my smartphone? Don't talk like that. Isn't it still charging? Fred Miller asks in a grumpy tone first thing in the morning. Actually, Fred's phone was still plugged into the charger where he had left it before going to sleep. Instead of apologizing or thanking me, he just clicks his tongue in irritation, which makes me even more frustrated. Fred has changed drastically since we got married. He often says, I'm an elite banker. Thanks to me, we live a comfortable life. However, Fred doesn't contribute financially to our household. Despite using his salary solely for himself, he acts as if he's the one supporting our family. In reality, I am the one supporting our household. I pay for all the utilities and groceries. Hey, what's this new clothing? It's Ian's. He's outgrown his old clothes, so we needed new ones. Don't spend my money on luxuries. I paid for it with my salary. I don't even have access to your bank account. Yet, he complains whenever I take Ian out for a meal or buy him new clothes. It seems like any small luxury bothers him. On the other hand, my father doesn't hesitate to spend money for us. Isn't the apartment too cramped? That's why I bought that condo Fred wanted to live in. It allows me to be close without living together. With a smile, he bought the condo and gifted us the top floor. He also lives on a different floor in the same building, so he can help us whenever needed. Mom, can I go to Grandpa's? Sure, but don't stay too late just because it's the same building. Make sure to come back before it gets dark. Okay, it's only natural. Ian is more attached to his grandfather than to his father, Fred. Whenever he has time, Ian goes to visit my father. Where's Ian? He's with Dad. Interestingly, Fred never complains about my father. Also, he seems careful not to say too much around Ian, probably because he doesn't want Ian to tell my father. It seems Fred is only bold with me, probably because he knows I won't trouble my father about it. Well, I can simply ignore his complaints. That's what I had thought casually. Fred doesn't participate in childcare at all. I've got to go out, Angela called me. Again? And the one taking his time away from parenting is Angela Reed, Fred's childhood friend. I really dislike her. Fred and I are like siblings, so please don't misunderstand. She says this every time we meet, yet she insists on asserting that she knows Fred better than I do because of their past, which is really annoying. Even my mother-in-law favors Angela, which complicates things further. I don't understand why Fred didn't choose Angela. He should have married her instead. When called to my in-laws' house, she makes sure I can hear her saying such things. My father-in-law scolds her for it, but she doesn't seem to care. Angela claims to be naturally naive. I'm naturally naive, so I tend to depend on Fred. I don't mean to make you uncomfortable. If she were younger, it might be somewhat excusable. However, she's 28 years old, and it's about time she acted her age. The reason she and Fred did not end up together is because of my father-in-law's presence. I don't want to call that woman my daughter-in-law, even out of obligation. If it really comes to that, I would rather divorce you. Angela is by no means a good person. She's known for playing around with men and lives a life without working, just a freeloader. She always begs Fred to buy her what she wants. My father-in-law detests Angela and strongly opposes the relationship. I never understood why my mother-in-law dotes on Angela so much. I'm sorry about my wife. You don't need to apologize, father-in-law. Fred is no better. He doesn't defend his wife when she's insulted. Instead, he's friendly with such a woman. True to my father-in-law's words, Fred never defends me against what my mother-in-law says. Sometimes he even laughs. Grandma, why would you say that? If Mom hadn't met Dad, I wouldn't have been born either. Am I an unwanted child to you? No, that's not true. Ian always stands up for me. He may not understand exactly how children are made, but he knows that it takes both parents to have a child. Since she also dotes on her brilliant grandson, she avoids saying such things in front of Ian. In that regard, Fred is just like her, which makes me think that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I have plans to drink with Angela tonight, so I'll be home late. Is that so? Gradually, I start to wonder if we really need Fred at all, and I begin preparing for a divorce. Ian seems to sense something too. Let me know if there's anything I can do to help. He said this, showing concern for me. Just then I was summoned by my mother-in-law. I really didn't want to go, but she would call non-stop, interfering with my work, so I had no choice but to go. My husband isn't here now, and there's no one to carry heavy things, so could you buy some rice? It seems my father-in-law was on a business trip. I thought to myself, why not order it online? But I knew arguing would only lead to more trouble. After work, carrying heavy items left me exhausted. While heading to the condo in a daze, a car running a red light hit me. It seems a car that ran a red light crashed into me. The car that hit you fled the scene, and we are currently investigating. That's what I was told while lying in a hospital bed. For now, I left Ian in the care of my father, and I would be hospitalized for a while. I had fractured my arm and couldn't do much work. Worrying about this, my father scolded me. Worry about yourself first. Ian and my father, along with my father-in-law who hurried back after hearing the news, frequently visited me in the hospital. But Fred and my mother-in-law did not visit at all. Well, that was expected. I'm coming in. What? I was surprised when Fred came to my hospital room. Sign this. He placed a divorce paper in front of me, already signed by him, with my mother-in-law's name as a witness. With that arm, you can't work. Now that you can't earn money, you're useless to me. What is that supposed to mean? Moreover, Angela is pregnant with my child. My thoughts froze. Angela is pregnant with Fred's child? I'm going to marry Angela, so sign this quickly. Saying that, Fred quickly turned his back on me, as if to say he had no further use for me. Here you go, divorce papers, you poor useless excuse of a wife. Saying that, Fred leaves the divorce papers on the table and exits. I am left staring blankly at the divorce papers from my hospital bed. I had my suspicions for a while, but to think he was actually cheating? And because he got her pregnant, he's discarding me, who can't earn money while hospitalized? Mom! Startled by my beloved son's voice, I look up to see Ian and my father standing there. My father frowns as he sees what I'm holding. What are you going to do? That's already decided. I answer while looking straight at my father, who nods in response. Now, let's make our move. I pushed to be discharged early and head to the bank where Fred works. My father, who drives me there, drops me off in front of the bank, telling me, do your best. And then he leaves. As I enter the bank, Fred notices me and frowns. By chance, there are no other customers in front of him. I walk straight towards Fred. I'm canceling all the accounts of the employees. What? Fred's expression reads, what are you talking about? I noticed several people looking at me annoyingly as I stood directly at the counter without taking a number. Oh, my apologies. Perhaps you didn't understand without the company name. What are you? I'm Rachel Cooper. Recently succeeded my father as the president. The company name is Cooper Corporation. What? Cooper Corporation is an IT company that my father started and now employs 1,900 people. It has grown rapidly in one generation and is quite famous in this area and in the industry. So Fred is visibly shocked. That's a lie, right? You're just trying to get back at me. If you think so, why don't you check? Fred begins checking something immediately. My father included my maiden name, Cooper, in the company name. While Fred is checking, I look around. Having mentioned the company name, the bystanders are now paying attention to our situation. No way, right? It seems he has confirmed it. Fred cautiously looks up at me. Are you really from that Cooper Corporation? Let's show him whose daughter he has angered. Contrary to the pale-faced Fred, I smirk confidently. That being said, please proceed with the cancellation quickly. Wait, hold on. If you cancel all these accounts at once... By the way, my father is quite angry about this whole situation. Pack your things and leave the condo. What? Why do I have to leave? Apparently, Fred has forgotten that the condo was bought by my father and it's in my father's name, while he wouldn't still be living there with Angela if it weren't. Forgot? That condo was bought by my father, the former president. You haven't paid a cent, nor have you contributed to the living expenses. Instead, you've been supporting your childhood friend and mistress, Angela, with all of it. Actually, we've been living off my salary. Who do you think has been earning the living here? And now, because she's pregnant, you expect me to hand over the condo to you and your mistress? How much more do you intend to disrespect me? I deliberately raise my voice so that those around can hear. Fred, of course, becomes flustered. Fred Miller is known to be a serious and professional person, yet at home, he doesn't contribute financially and is cheating with his childhood friend. The atmosphere around us grows colder. Is that true? What? The person speaking to me is the branch manager of the bank. He had been here for a while, listening to our conversation. It seems I need to speak with you in detail. I'm terribly sorry for the behavior of our bank employee. The branch manager then apologized. I was led to the back, where Fred, the branch manager, and I discussed the matter. I am deeply sorry for the inconvenience caused. The branch manager sighed deeply and apologized again. He even made Fred apologize, who looked displeased. I understand how you feel, ma'am. It's natural to not want to deposit your important money in a bank that employs such a person. If you decide to cancel, we will arrange it. I am no longer his wife. I will reconsider the cancellation under one condition. At those words, both lifted their faces in hope. It was a good deal for the branch manager, but the worst possible condition for Fred. If you dismiss Fred Miller here, I am willing to continue banking with you. What? That's only natural. I was planning to dismiss him anyway. It seemed the branch manager had already intended to fire him. Fred, initially confused, began to turn red. Just as Fred was about to speak, "Excuse me, Miss Cooper. A man claiming to be your father has arrived." Another bank employee approached us. I asked the branch manager to let him in, and Fred thwarted, closed his mouth in dissatisfaction. Wait, why am I involved? What? Mom. Sorry to keep you waiting. My father entered, holding my mother-in-law's arm firmly. She made a displeased face and glared sharply at me upon seeing me. This was your doing. What are you trying to do? I won't forgive you for treating your mother-in-law like this, even if she's just related by marriage. Silence. When my mother-in-law started to shout, my father, looking even more intimidating, shouted her down. This silenced not only her, but also Fred, who gasped. I know you've been harassing my daughter, calling her for menial tasks, making her carry heavy things, and not even thanking her. Instead, you've been saying that Angela, the mistress, is better so that my daughter could hear it, and her husband Fred just laughs, letting the child defend her. Father's voice echoed angrily through the bank. Fred tried to intervene but stopped under my father's stern look. Also, I know that Angela Reed was the one who hit Rachel. She's already been arrested by the police. No way Angela would do that. What are you surprised about? You're the mastermind. Father scolded her again. Meanwhile, Fred, seemingly unaware, just stood there, stunned. You and your son are the worst. Rachel, let's go. Yes. I followed my father out. The branch manager followed us, repeatedly apologizing. As I was considering continuing the contract with this branch manager, I could hear Fred and his mother arguing loudly behind us. It seems they were blaming each other. The voices could be heard outside, and nearby customers and other bank employees murmured, "So what we overheard was true." Everything went according to plan. Yes, they reacted just as we expected, which helped. Following the plan, we left the bank laughing confidently. As a result, Fred was safely fired. Thanks to the thorough investigation by the police, Angela received a prison sentence. My mother-in-law was forced to divorce by my father-in-law after it was discovered that she had orchestrated a hit and run on me by inciting Angela, and she was also taken by the police. Mom, Grandpa, welcome back. Thank you for looking after Ian, father-in-law. No worries, it seems you've resolved everything nicely. After cornering Fred and others at the bank, I went to pick up Ian, who had been in the care of my father-in-law. He had helped a lot this time. He found evidence of my mother-in-law inciting Angela and a note detailing the plan to eliminate me, which he handed over to the police. When I expressed my gratitude, he simply smiled and said, "You did well." Since then, my days have become busier than ever. I was already busy as a board member and next in line for the presidency, but now I carry the greater responsibility of being the president. Meanwhile, my father started a new company. I've always wanted to start a new company. He gleefully pushed the presidency onto me as a way to get back at Fred. Therefore, both my father and I became busy, and my father-in-law looked after Ian. It turns out that his business trip, forced by my mother-in-law's affair with his boss, led him to early retirement and moving into our apartment complex. I'm currently studying remote work. I plan to eventually give him a role at the new company. I'm sending experts to train him because he seems very capable, and I like him to flourish in our new company. The fathers seemed to get along well now, often visiting each other's apartment to share drinks and conversations. On the other hand, Fred, ousted and isolated, returned to his empty family home. Unable to secure a job at any bank and widely known through the rumors spread by my father and me, he was left unable to find any employment and resorted to paying me compensation through debts. Now he struggles daily, working tirelessly in menial jobs, and although he has approached us pleading, we've collectively ignored him. Once rumored to become a branch manager, he has indeed fallen far. When I grow up, I want to be like Grandpa. This incident made Ian respect my father even more, seeing him as a hero who rescued us from the malicious deeds of Fred and my mother-in-law. Then, would you like to take over Grandpa's legacy someday? Yes. My father was thrilled by Ian's commitment. Not to be outdone by my father, I was determined to push even harder. After a while, both my company and my father's company stabilized. Mom, welcome back. You worked hard. Exhausted, I returned home to find my father-in-law had prepared dinner. I helped you today. Is that so? Well done, Ian. I'm looking forward to dinner. As I praised a smiling Ian, my father arrived late. The four of us then sat down at the dinner table, enjoying a meal and laughing together. In stark contrast to us, Fred's life had fallen apart. He piled up debts upon debts and was ultimately taken care of by loan sharks. Rumor has it that he ended up on a boat somewhere. Fred's family home was sold to pay off his debts, and my mother-in-law, having lost her home, was spotted living under a bridge. By the way, I received an apology letter from Angela's parents. They are good people. Please read it. If you say so, Father. According to the letter from Angela's parents, she had given birth in prison. They took in the child, ensuring Angela would not rely on them after her release by moving far away. The letter included a profound apology to me. Angela's parents seemed genuinely good people, and I deeply hoped the child would grow to resemble them, not the parents. However, Angela now had no place to return to. Alone, I hoped she would come to terms with her actions. Years later, we grew without the torment of Fred's presence. Did we even have a father? Seemed to be the general sentiment. Ian seemed to remember, but he dismissed any connection as irrelevant. We all did the same, effectively erasing his existence from our lives. I'm definitely going to take over Grandpa's company. If it's what you've decided, I won't object. Ian chose to take over my father's company, a toy company. Starting as an ordinary employee, Ian was soon valued for his continuous flow of ideas. With this, maybe it's time to hand over the company to Ian soon. Laughing, my father contemplated retiring to the countryside once he handed over the company to Ian. I was also training a successor, teaching him vigorously. Once he was ready, I too considered early retirement to pursue new endeavors. With these thoughts, I continued my busy day as president.
What is this, really? It's no surprise I cried out like that. There was a termination notice. After all, though I was told not to contact anyone while on a business trip, this was something I couldn't just ignore. I hurriedly called Matt. No answer. I kept calling, again and again. At the same time, I sent messages, but there was no response. It was past noon. Perhaps he couldn't answer due to work. But I had to get in touch somehow. After persistently calling, he finally answered. Hello, Matt. Didn't I tell you not to contact me during work? He snapped at me as soon as he answered. Sorry, but it's urgent. There's a registered letter from the company. I told you not to contact me while I'm on a business trip. Matt was completely unwilling to listen. What will you do if you ruin the contract because of you? It seemed he really wouldn't listen. Yes. I thought. I got a termination notice, but I'll keep quiet. As a result of not contacting at all. My name is Kristen Brown. I'm 30 years old. I work from home as an industrial designer. Simply put, an industrial designer designs the shapes of products. I used to work from home as an employee of a major company, but now I have gone independent and freelance. Thanks to that, work is going well, and I'm earning a good income. I married Matt, whom I met through a friend's introduction when I was 26. Even after getting married, I continued to work for the company, but when I got pregnant with my 2-year-old son, Nick, they allowed me to switch to working from home. From then on, I worked from home, and Matt worked at the company. I returned to work from home after maternity and parental leave, though my salary was a bit reduced compared to when I was commuting. Still, it was easier mentally and physically than commuting and leaving my child in daycare. Our company really created a good system. However, it seemed that Matt was dissatisfied with the decrease in my salary. Wouldn't it be better if you went to the office even if it means leaving Nick in daycare? We have a mortgage, and the company's performance isn't showing signs of improvement with the recent recession. That's true, but if we put Nick in daycare, we'd end up needing to pay for that, and when you calculate it, it would come out about the same. When we got married, we took out a joint mortgage, meaning we both paid the mortgage for our new home. Renting is like throwing money away. If you stretch a bit, buying will be easier in the long run. Matt works at a securities company and is somewhat knowledgeable about finance and assets. Persuaded by him, I agreed, and we bought a condo. It was near a station, convenient for commuting, and a bit expensive, but it was said to be a property that would continue to appreciate in value. Until then, our days were peaceful, but since I started working from home, Matt seemed increasingly discontent. It seems, more than the income issue, he felt it was unfair that only I was at home. If the money ends up being the same, then Kristen should also commute. Staying at home leads to a lack of exercise and becoming isolated from society, doesn't it? Indeed, there might be some truth to that. But after the first childbirth followed by the first childcare, it's easier on my body. It's hard to ask for help, as both Matt and I are from rural areas and our parents live far away. It's difficult to get help from either side. When I talked about such things, Matt muttered something that made me somewhat understand his true feelings. It's always you who gets it easy. I want to stay home too. Even if he says that, our jobs are different. I'm a designer, Matt is in sales. I finish designs on my computer, and often just sending the data is enough. But Matt's work can't be done from home. That's true, but it's still unfair that only you get to enjoy this nice house all to yourself. Hearing those words, I was shocked. What do you mean, all to myself? Isn't this house for you, me, and Nick? First of all, we're both paying the mortgage, so the rights should be split equally. Hearing such childish remarks from Matt, who is a father, made me feel more anxious. Nick is growing up healthy, and I managed to continue working smoothly while taking care of him. Then, I decided to go independent. My work was appreciated, and I started getting offers to handle more projects from business contacts. But around that time, Matt began coming home late and working on weekends more often. It's a recession now, I have to work harder, or my sales commission will just keep decreasing. After saying that, Matt sighed sarcastically. Must be nice, those who can work relaxed at home. No need to commute in packed trains, oh, how I envy that. It's as if he thinks I'm just relaxing at home while he's the only one working hard. But that's not the case. I'm doing childcare and housework at home, on top of my job. Although I have a lot of work that can be done from home, there are times I need to go out for work and other reasons. I'm certainly not just playing around at home. I couldn't take it anymore and confronted him about it. So, I'm not just playing around. Why can't you understand that? I'm paying my share of the mortgage, too. Oh, really? Matt interrupted me, his face turning red as he retorted. I guess I'm just a loser then. I can't even get a home mortgage by myself with my measly salary. No one is saying that. Unlike talented designers like you, I have to please unpleasant clients every day, or I won't get paid. No matter what I say, that's how it feels. He only takes everything in the worst way. I was completely exhausted and eventually stopped saying anything to Matt. I gave up because it seemed useless to say anything. Gradually, I started to wonder if there was any point in living together anymore. But Matt is Nick's father, and the thought of taking Nick's father away from him seemed selfish, so that feeling stopped me. Perhaps because I stopped speaking up, Matt began to behave more selfishly, and eventually, he hardly contributed any money at all. It was supposed to be a joint mortgage, but now it looks like I'm the only one paying it. It's tough, but honestly, with my current income, I could manage to pay the mortgage and live by myself. Matt probably knows this and behaves this way. If we were at risk of losing the house because we couldn't pay the mortgage, I think he would contribute something. Is Matt that calculating? And around that time, I began to suspect something. Maybe Matt has another woman, and he's spending his money on her. If that's the case, I'll have to make a drastic decision, of course, making sure he pays what he should. I wanted to gather some evidence, but couldn't think of how. The most reliable way would be a private investigator, but that's expensive. If I had specific dates or places, or knew who the other person was, it might be manageable, but with just a vague suspicion, I have no idea how much it might cost. I'm managing now, but if Matt and I were to separate, there would be financial uncertainties. I want to save as much money as possible. While I was feeling uneasy, a registered letter arrived from the company. Matt has been on a business trip since yesterday, gone for 3 days and 2 nights. On such a day, why would the company send something like this? I was even more troubled, but curious. I decided to open it. If it's an urgent matter, I have to contact you immediately, I reasoned as I opened the envelope. What is this, really? It's no surprise I cried out like that. There was a termination notice. After all, I was told not to contact anyone while on a business trip, but I couldn't just ignore this. I hurriedly called Matt. No answer. I kept calling, again and again. At the same time, I sent messages, but there was no response. It was past noon. Perhaps he couldn't answer due to work. But I had to get in touch somehow. After persistently calling, he finally answered. Hello, Matt. Didn't I tell you not to contact me during work? He snapped at me as soon as he answered. Sorry, but it's urgent. There's a registered letter from the company. I told you not to contact me while I'm on a business trip. Matt was completely unwilling to listen. What will you do if you ruin the contract because of you? As he spoke on the phone, I could hear someone else's voice. Perhaps. I quickly pressed the record button. Listen, I'll say it again. Do not contact me. Understand? Despite saying it was important, he just wouldn't listen. Yes. I thought. I got a termination notice, but I'll keep quiet. I then hung up the phone. I had told him it was important, but Matt didn't listen. Moreover, it seemed like it wouldn't really affect him even if he lost his job at the company. I was a designer by profession and had been steadily building my portfolio. When I started working from home, I was an employee. As an employee, I had to report daily to the company how many hours I worked and such. I also needed to inform them when taking time off. However, now I was independent, handling not only my former company's projects but also those of other clients. In other words, I am completely freelance. Since becoming freelance, I had taken on many more jobs, earning several times what I did as an employee. I could afford to leave Matt, and it wouldn't be a problem. But it still felt frustrating to end things this way. The voice on the phone just now was probably a woman's. I carefully listened to the recording and could vaguely make out what was being said. The other person, unaware that I was calling, was coaxing Matt. I couldn't hear the name of the item, but she was asking him to buy something for her birthday. Probably, her birthday was coming up soon. This might give me a clue to track down Matt's partner. If I could narrow it down a bit more, I would hire a detective. For now, I just had to wait a little longer. The next night, Matt returned from his business trip. Didn't I tell you not to contact me during work? You almost ruined a contract because of that. I'm sorry. What contract was he in the middle of signing, and with whom? Perhaps a birthday purchase agreement? I kept a straight face, but laughed inside. If you understand, then that's fine. I'm going to take a bath and go to bed. Yes. I quietly let Matt prepare for bed and take his bath. Once he was sound asleep, I stealthily checked his smartphone. As expected, it was locked. I gently held the smartphone, applied Matt's sleeping finger to it, and unlocked it. What I found was revealing. Photos of Matt getting cozy with the same woman. Not just photos, but videos too. Some of them were conclusive evidence. Besides the messages, it was clear when and how the two spent time together. Maybe Matt thought I would never notice his affair. He really took me for a fool. I copied the data from Matt's smartphone to my computer. I quietly put the smartphone back where I found it and began to slowly plan my next moves. I'm going to make him suffer for sure. First, I'll uncover the identity of this woman. Just from the pictures and nicknames, it's unclear who she is exactly. I'll start by checking the data. The next day, Matt left the house as if nothing had happened, heading to the company. I hope he can work as usual. After seeing Matt off, I took my time to reread the registered letter. It didn't provide detailed explanations. It's unclear what happened, but it seems the termination is definite. This is a bit troubling. If Matt loses his job, it will be harder to get compensation or child support from him. You can't squeeze blood from a stone. The money he hasn't been bringing home has probably been spent on that woman. I want to recover as much as I can. Of course, I will also make the other woman pay for compensation. Now, I'll scrutinize the data I transferred to my computer. It was unpleasant to see their flirtatious exchanges, but there must be some clues there. I remembered that SNS user registration required a phone number. I found it. A contact saved as Anderson Products. In Matt's phone book, apparently a business contact turned out to be the affair partner. Whether it's her real name or not, she goes by the name Jessica. I picked out the necessary information and compiled the data. Now, what to do with this data? Should I hire a detective, or should I take it straight to a lawyer? While I was thinking, an idea struck me. Something I saw in a melodramatic drama, I decided to do it too. You know, I think I'm going to go back to my parents' house for a bit. Why? It's nothing serious, but my mom has worsened her cold and is bedridden, and my dad can't manage everything at home alone. Matt glanced at me briefly and pretended to think. He probably thought it better to make a show of reluctance. Can't be helped. How many days are you planning to be away? At least 2 or 3 days. I looked up at Matt slightly from below, gauging his reaction. Looking down at me, Matt seemed to like my timid attitude and smiled a little. Well, that's being filial. Go ahead. Thank you so much. I expressed my thanks politely. My attitude seemed to please Matt. So, when are you leaving? I wanted to leave today, but it's already late, so I'll go first thing tomorrow morning. I'll leave right after you go to work. I see, understood. Take care on your way. Matt was unervingly kind. This should, hopefully, make him act as I anticipated. The next morning, Matt left the house as usual. He's been told he's fired, yet it's mysterious where he's going. But I need him to leave the house at least once so I can prepare. I sent Matt off with a look of regret, then got started on my preparations. Nick is with a reliable babysitter. I've entrusted him to her several times before for work or errands, so I can leave him with her confidently. Then I sent a message to Matt. I'm on the train now. Really sorry for the inconvenience, I'm planning to be there for 3 days. Matt replied immediately. Understood, take care. That night, just as I expected, Matt brought Jessica to our home. I hired a professional to capture the whole scenario as evidence. I knew that the data originally on Matt's smartphone was enough to give me an advantage in the divorce, but I really wanted to punish them both. On the first day of setting the trap, Matt returned home with Jessica in the afternoon, and they didn't leave until the evening of the next day. And that night was the main event. I was a bit anxious waiting since I didn't know what time they would return, but I was sure they would. Late that night, just before the date changed, they returned. They seemed to have been drinking and giggled their way into the bedroom, where they collapsed onto the bed, entwined. Now. Welcome home. As I finished shouting, I slammed open the closet door with a bang. Jessica screamed and rolled off the bed. She hit her head on the cabinet next to the bed in her fall. Serves her right. Wah, wah, wah. Matt didn't fall, but was frozen in an odd position on the bed. He was facing up, pushing his hands forward from his chest. Apparently, he was so startled by my appearance that he accidentally pushed Jessica away. That's why she flew off and hit her head. Welcome home, dear. Matt just stared at me with his eyes wide open, stuck in his ridiculous pose. Really, he looked quite foolish. Oh, we have a guest, I see. I slowly stepped out of the closet and stood beside the bed, looking down at Matt with a broad smile. The unconscious woman was of no concern to me. You. Who is this person, really? It's quite rude to sleep in someone else's home like this. Matt couldn't say a word. Well, let's have a little chat. I took out my smartphone and contacted someone. Who did you contact? Oh. Just someone. I hummed a tune as I ended the call and looked coldly down at Jessica. What shall we do with her? What do you mean? Wake her up? Or let her sleep? Matt looked back and forth between Kristen and me, silent and perplexed. Well, it might be troublesome if something happens, so let's wake her up. Hey, you. I shook her gently, and Jessica groaned as she woke up. Hey, you. Even as I spoke to her, Jessica looked dazed for a moment but eventually realized what was happening and froze. We're going to have a talk now, so come join us over here. Jessica remained frozen and didn't respond. Come here, please. Yes. She reflexively responded when I spoke a bit more forcefully. I called them both to the dining table and had them sit down. I really didn't want to have you sit here, but well, you've already used quite a bit here, so the table will do. Of course, I won't be serving any coffee. Please answer what I'm about to ask you. If you answer honestly, I might consider being more lenient. What do you mean by more lenient? Perhaps reducing the compensation. Hearing the word compensation, both of their faces turned pale. So, when did it start? What? When did the two of you start this relationship? If you don't answer honestly, I'll double the compensation. Matt's eyes darted around. Jessica blinked excessively. Since when? Today was the first time. Right? Yes, that's a lie. Really? Yeah. Today, we met for the first time and, you weren't here, and in a moment of madness, we just… Yes. It seemed they had decided to stick to that story. Yeah, that's a lie. What? Ding dong. The people I called have arrived. I let Matt and Jessica wait and asked the newcomers to enter the dining room. A man and a woman in suits walked in. Please, go ahead. At my request, the woman pulled out a tea envelope and the man opened a laptop. Here you go. The screen showed Matt and Jessica from yesterday. They entered the room together, and the video continued with more footage inside. Hey, isn't this illegal filming? That's right, it's a crime. The two started making a fuss, but the detective explained properly. Indeed, filming someone secretly is illegal. However, if it's for catching evidence of infidelity, it's allowed. Moreover, this is done by professionals, that is, by the detective agency as part of their job. Therefore, it doesn't count as an illegal act. Got it? So this is not a crime. Both were silent, looking down. Now, let me ask again. When did it start? They didn't answer. Since when? You said today was the first time, but that's a lie, isn't it? Well, yesterday. As he said that, he looked up and met my eyes. I'm sorry. What I said earlier, actually, it was yesterday. We drank too much, and one thing led to another. Yes, sorry. Both of them said that and apologized. So, you admit to the affair then? Yes, I'm sorry. But it was just once. I'm sorry. It's true. They seem to be coordinating their story this time. Like I said before, if it's a lie, the compensation doubles, okay? It's not a lie. Believe me. It's true. I brought my laptop in front of them this time. First time yesterday, then who are these people? Displayed on the screen were photos and videos copied from Matt's smartphone, as well as their SNS exchanges. Yep, another lie. You went through my phone without permission. That's a crime. Too bad, this isn't a crime either. Remember why I told you earlier? They sat silently, unable to say anything more, and resignedly told the whole story. Their relationship started 2 years ago, around the time Nick was born. Matt began talking about how lonely he felt when I started paying less attention to him after our child was born. During that time, he met Jessica, and they continued their relationship until now. It was just a momentary lapse, he was remorseful. He rambled on about this. Jessica looked at Matt with disbelief. It made sense. After being fed sweet nothings for so long, now she was just a fling, an afterthought. Jessica had tears in her eyes out of frustration but admitted when their relationship started and then kept silent about the rest. It seemed pointless to ask anything more at this point. We will set another day to discuss this with Jessica's parents and Matt's parents, both. I thanked the detectives and sent them home, and told Jessica to leave as well. Could you leave too? Maybe stay in a hotel or somewhere. You might catch up with Jessica now? I wouldn't do that. Well, it doesn't matter either way. Just leave. I also kicked Matt out. Later, I called both our parents to discuss the situation. My in-laws were embarrassed and just kept apologizing. My parents were silently furious. I showed all the evidence to our parents, including the confrontation from that day. So, I want a divorce. I'll take custody of Nick and I'm requesting child support and compensation. Matt protested the amount I suggested, but I had no intention of compromising. You've deceived me for 2 years, brought another woman into this house, and stopped contributing financially. My in-laws were shocked to hear this for the first time, and my father-in-law tried to hit Matt, but I stopped him. I don't want to see that, so if you're going to do it, please do it where I can't see. My in-laws agreed to cover the compensation and child support up front. We decided that Matt would take over the condo, I would be paid for my share of the mortgage, and then he could do as he liked with it. I don't want to live in a tainted home. Once you've paid me, you can do whatever you like with it. It'll probably end up being sold. Even if it's sold now, it will only result in a loss. Matt doesn't have the means to keep paying the mortgage, unfortunately. The reason Matt was fired from his company came to light. He had caused significant losses to a client. Not just once, but multiple times. I thought it was a sure bet. All the trades I thought were winners turned out badly. Matt said he became envious after I became freelance and started earning more. Doing what shouldn't be done to get back at someone, like trading stocks without client permission and causing them losses, was what happened. As he tried to cover up one mistake with another, the situation grew beyond his control. Yet, he couldn't stop because he believed that he could eventually make it right. Unaware that the company had caught on, he distracted himself by meeting with Jessica. That day too, he lied about taking a sick day to care for me when I was unwell. Who would think to send a termination notice to a house where there's a sick person? That's just unthinkable. Which is more unthinkable? Saying such things when he's the one lying about being sick to go on a trip with another woman seems unbelievable. Here's why he cheated. Ever since Nick was born, you stopped paying attention to me. That's to be expected. When there's a baby, everything else comes second. I can't cater to an adult like a child. When I come home, I'm too busy taking care of Nick, and it's not fun. I met Jessica at a girls' bar where I was taken on an invite. Jessica was young and cute, and she listened to everything I said with interest. I regained the confidence I had lost. When they met, Jessica was just 19, and they became close after celebrating her 20th birthday. I bought Jessica anything she wanted. It was cute how she depended on me. Kristen, you earn enough on your own to buy whatever you want, so you never ask for anything like that. To fulfill Jessica's desires, he stopped contributing financially at home. The condo has always been where Kristen stays, and I just sleep there. So I thought it's only right that Kristen should pay for it. I remember him saying something like that. If Kristen went back to working in an office, she wouldn't be home any more than me. I thought that would be fair. So that's why he suggested I stop working from home and commute instead. It's truly exasperating. No matter how I listen to the excuses Matt comes up with next, I can't find any reasonable ones. But Matt blames everything on me. If only Kristen had continued working like before and supported me, none of this would have happened. Hearing this, even my father-in-law broke down in tears. It's really pathetic. But I have nothing to do with that anymore. Just because they paid the money I demanded doesn't mean my wounds are healed or that I can forgive them. However, they agreed to pay both the compensation and child support I requested. I guess that will have to do. I filed a separate claim for compensation against Jessica. Fortunately, her parents were decent people and covered everything for her. I had said I'd double the fine if they lied, but I decided against it. I have some common sense. We settled it within those bounds. I'm sorry. Jessica appeared in front of me with her parents, completely different from the drunken Jessica I had known. She honestly talked about her past. Jessica came from the countryside and was shocked by the differences in the city. Her classmates at university were all fashionable and flashy, seeming to sparkle. She tried to keep up by working at a girls' bar. I met Matt there, and he told me his marriage wasn't going well and he'd soon be divorced. It's just taking time because of the child. I believed him. It seemed Jessica genuinely loved Matt. Matt looked so handsome, and since he had a good salary, he bought me anything I asked for. I was happy that he listened to everything I said. That day, with me not around, Matt brought Jessica over, suggesting they could soon live together in this house to save on hotel costs. Jessica believed that and followed him. I thought we would soon be living together here, and I was so happy. But then, Mr. Matt treated me just like a fleeting whim. Jessica said this with tears in her eyes. That's when I woke up. I realized I was just being played. She did not appear to be lying at all. But I won't say I was deceived. I knew he was married and still got involved. It's my responsibility. I'm sorry. She said this as she apologized to her parents. The true extent is unknown. Perhaps Matt did genuinely like Jessica at some point. But in the end, he chose self-preservation. It just goes to show that his understanding was only superficial. Someone who acts selfishly for such reasons, needing to be coddled and upheld like a child even by his spouse, Jessica is better off forgetting such a man. Jessica has quit university and plans to return to the countryside with her parents to start over. I intend to work and pay back what my parents fronted as soon as possible. Saying this, she apologized politely until the very end as she left. Once an object of my disdain, now, I hope this young woman moves straight ahead in her life and finds happiness. Matt was later fired from his company, unable to pay for the damages he caused, and was sued. It was inevitable. He lied to take time off work and was caught spending time with Jessica, facing charges of embezzlement. Not only did he cause losses to his clients, but he also used that money for leisure, which led to his judgment. Although he received a suspended sentence, he was found guilty, and his future is uncertain. I feel sorry for my decent in-laws, but it was a natural consequence. I have returned home, and while my parents look after Nick, I continue to work. Despite the personal challenges, my career is going well. Now, Nick's growth is my solace. I think I don't need a man for a while. But as Jessica returns to the countryside, I hope she meets someone truly trustworthy, and I hope to encounter someone good in my life too. Life is still long. It's too long to stumble and give up after just one setback. And I want to show Nick how to walk forward, not to become someone who loses everything by being overly dependent like his father. To ensure that, I will continue to walk forward, head held high, never giving up on happiness.